Hey everybody, it's Ashley from Lovely Commotion. Can you hear me? Can you see me? If you can, will you type in the comments where you are from and just say a little hi? I've seen we've got one person from Australia. That is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. Comments where you are from and just say a little hi. I've seen we've got one person from Australia. That is awesome. All right. Are we up? I can't tell. I can't see the comments here. Thank you for coming. Oh, yes, there's Minnesota. Thank you guys for coming to my first webinar. I have never done this before, so we're going to cross our fingers that nothing goes wrong. I am here in Kansas City, Missouri, and we have had a lot of rain lately, but luckily we have not had the flooding that some of Missouri has had. Oh, San Diego, we're looking to go there this December, and from Ohio. That's awesome. If you're just joining us, feel free to come on in. Let me know where you're from in the comments. It's kind of fun to see where everybody is from. It is the evening right now. What time is it there in Australia? Yeah, this is kind of slow to update, so I'm just going to let it go there just for a couple minutes. Okay, well, it is right at 7 o'clock, so I'm hoping there'll be some other friends joining us soon. And I just wanted to give you a brief overview. This webinar will be about 45 minutes to an hour long, and I really hope that you are able to take some of what you learned tonight and put it into practice. We've got Central Ohio, we've got it's 10 a.m. Monday morning in Australia. Wow, wow. That is quite the difference. Awesome, awesome. We've also got, we've got more Ohio, Pennsylvania. I love seeing where everybody's coming in around the world, and technology can just bring us all together. It's just absolutely amazing to me. Okay, so you are in the right place if you are wanting to start preschool portfolios in your preschool classroom and you kind of don't know where to start and you really need some guidance. You're in the right place if you are needing that. And you're also in the right place if you already use portfolios in your classroom and maybe they just aren't working out for you like you'd want them to, or maybe you just need to streamline them a little bit more. You need some help organizing them. That's what we're going to do tonight. That's what we're going to talk about. So I'm hoping that I can help you with that. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share us to the presentation. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to put us up here on the Keynote. Awesome. Sweet. Okay. Now, I just wanted to get started with our presentation so that we won't take up too much of your time. This is the how to get started with student portfolios in a preschool classroom. What you're going to learn. So in this webinar, we're going to talk about what portfolios are and are not, what materials are needed to get started with portfolios, and how to save time when creating multiple portfolios, because obviously you have more than one student in your classroom. So there's going to be multiple portfolios you're putting together, and I can imagine that if you're just getting started, that might be one of your concerns. We're also going to talk about the types of documents that I like to include in portfolios. I don't like to make it so hard on myself. So we're going to talk about templates that we can use. And then also I'm going to have a link to a video I created so that you can see a sample portfolio in action to kind of better understand what it looks like. So that is what we are going to learn today. Also, if you're just coming in, welcome, welcome. Come on in. We just started on the webinar, How to Get Started with Preschool Portfolios in Your Classroom. I'm so glad you're here. So we've talked about what we're going to learn. We also talked about that this webinar will be about 45 minutes to an hour long, and I'm so glad you're joining me. This is my first ever webinar. So let's just go ahead, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. My name is Ashley, and I'm the owner and creator here at Lovely Commotion. I've worn lots of different hats within the education world. I have my elementary ed and early childhood degree. I actually started as a first grade teacher. And then when my first kiddo was born, I decided that I wanted to take some time with her. And I started working part-time as parent educator for the Parents as Teachers program, which I absolutely loved. But unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and there were budget cuts, and we all got laid off. So that was very unfortunate. And then but then I started teaching preschool, and I have taught preschool on and off in different settings for the past 6 years. Early education is like definitely my love. It's my passion. Like my heart doesn't go anywhere else. I absolutely adore the preschool age. And so I find it very easy to invest a lot of my time and my energy into creating things for my classroom and my kiddos to make things run smoother and just to make it the best quality that I possibly can. But my first year of teaching preschool, I found it kind of hard because I was trying to wrap my head around assessments and portfolios, and I didn't have a manual. My administration did not say, here you go, this is what you use, this is what we do, which honestly, I think that was a blessing in hindsight. But I needed something. I needed a place to start. And so I searched the internet, but this was a little before, there was a lot of good stuff on there. This is before Teachers Pay Teachers when I started looking at some of this stuff, and it wasn't easy to find what I needed as an assessment with a portfolio component. And so I decided I would create my own. I like to create. It makes me happy. And so I went ahead and made my own. Now, it wasn't easy. Lots of tweaks, lots of learning later. And now I feel like I have this plan that works for me. Part of the plan that is like I'm most proud of would be the portfolio section of that assessment plan, because it really showcases some amazing things that my kiddos are doing. And that is the part that we are going to talk about today, is the portfolio component of my assessment plan. Before we get started, I do want to mention that there will be a full question and answer session at the end, and there will also be a sweet little bonus at the end of this webinar, so make sure you stick around for that. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about what portfolios are and what portfolios are not. So we're going to start on the R side. And portfolios are child-based. No two portfolios should be the same, just as no two children are the same. Now, the portfolios may have the same bones, the same structure, the same templates, but everything inside of them, the photographs, the work samples, the observations, they all need to be individualized to that student. Portfolios also are guided by assessment. Now, this is something I see a lot in our preschool, is we don't always have our portfolios really guided by the assessment. Sometimes we want to make it more of a beautiful scrapbook of these things that we've done through the year. But really, a portfolio, the goal of it is to show student progress in this whole child light, rather than using a report card, which generally shows us a lot of the cognitive child light on that report card. We want to look at the whole child. And, this portfolio can help us see that whole child, not only through photographs, but work samples and things that a report card can never, ever show us. We'll talk about more of what portfolios are not here in a minute, but let's keep going on to shows learning of whole child through pictures, observations, and work samples. There it is again, that whole child. I might be a little bit passionate about this, but I really, really want us to see all of that child, not just what that child knows as pre-reading, what that child knows as math. I want to see how that child socially interacts with other kids. I want to know how that child handles challenges. Those are all things that you can help parents, other educators see this child through that whole child lens by using portfolio. So portfolios house the pictures that show learning, the observations that describe learning, and the work samples that were created by children who are learning. They also show progression. The benefit to using a portfolio is that you can look back in time. You can flip that sucker back. And lucky for me, I went from teaching 3-4s and then up to pre-K this past year. So I got to have some of my kiddos 2 years. So that means I was able to create a portfolio for them that went for 2 whole years of their learning. So when I turn back, there's some pretty powerful stuff back there when we're able to look at how this child has grown. It's also showing this progression in a way that we're not necessarily comparing child to child. We're comparing the child and what they have done from then to now. It is amazing because you can literally see it. I mean, it's right there. You can put your hands on it. You can see it in pictures. You can see it in work samples, and it's super powerful. And it actually also, it shows that play-based learning actually works. You know, sometimes parents are very hesitant. Well, where are the worksheets? I can't see what you're doing. Well, portfolios show you way more than a worksheet could ever show you on what your child is actually learning. Okay, let's hop over to the are not side. Portfolios are not activity-based. It's kind of a little bit hard for me to explain this, but you do all these great activities that you have on your lesson plan, and you have them all there, and sometimes you'll take pictures of them, and maybe they don't necessarily show that child mastering a skill, but you include them because you all did it. Like maybe, here's an example. We sometimes do a teddy bear picnic, and it's just a very fun time for us to bring our teddy bears. We do some learning with them in the morning, measuring, weighing, all those things, describing them. But then come lunch, we eat with them at the carpet. And, I always take pictures of that. That doing all those activity-based photos are not necessarily what you're wanting to put in your portfolio. Is it okay to have some of that? Absolutely, because it shows that child as a member of that class, but we really want it to be based on those assessments, guided by the assessments. So it's about what the child has learned and is learning, not necessarily what you planned for them to do, what activities you plan for them to do. I hope I'm explaining that in a way that makes sense. Also, portfolios are not pictures shoved in a notebook. You probably take lots of pictures throughout your day with your kiddos. I know I take a ton, and some might be fun, unrelated photographs. And you know what? To put some of those in the portfolio is great. I mean, it helps you and everyone else see the child in this whole child light, like a fun, loving, happy child. But it doesn't mean that we should just take all those pictures that we made and shove them in a portfolio, put them on some cardstock, add some pretty paper, and call it a portfolio. That would actually be a photo book, because it is not guided by assessment. So definitely not a shove pictures in a notebook. It is also not a scrapbook. Scrapbook would be, maybe some pictures with some captions underneath. Captions are awesome, but if it's not guided by the assessment, guided by the skills that we're looking for, then it's not necessarily a portfolio that we can show this progress of learning that we want to show. And then again, I have it there again. Yes, I know I said that twice, a scrapbook, but many times, I see a lot of the scrapbooking going on. And it is a great keepsake for parents, but it really isn't me taking the time to showcase the learning of this child. So there are what portfolios are and are not. Now I want to go into some materials that you need to get started. It's actually not too bad. A binder for each student, obviously. And I know that we buy these by the bulk, so we can have one for each student. And then these binders with their portfolio, let's say they start in your center maybe at 2 years old, and they keep moving up and up, age levels. We pass these on. We find out who their next teacher is, and we pass these on so that they can fill them up next. But it doesn't mean that if you just have, pre-kindergarten strictly that you can't do this. You absolutely can. So we definitely need a binder, a 3-ring binder for each student. Ours are 2-inch. If you're only doing, 1 year in it, you could probably get away with 1.5 inches. And then we also have the cover page, which is down there in the corner. I print these for my kiddos just as, pretty cover page, whose portfolio it is, and just kind of gives that precedence of starting a beautiful portfolio. And then we also have the first and last day photo page. I always like to take a picture of my kids on the very first day of school, add it to the left, and then take a picture of them on the last day of school and add that to the right. And then that's just kind of a fun keepsake. It's amazing to see how much they grow just physically as well. And then dividers, this is a very important part for me. I like to print these on cardstock, colorful cardstock. And this is where I can break up all the sections of my portfolio. So things like language and literacy, math, social emotional, science, what am I missing? Motor, all those different components will go behind that divider. And then there's portfolio templates. And these portfolio templates are what we're going to talk about next. And they're really the bones of the portfolio. I already have them made so that when I'm ready to start the year, I copy those and they're ready, but I can personalize them to each child. So those are my time savers. Those are my favorite things because they help me in order to make all these portfolios. They help me stay sane, right? If I had to rewrite, if I had to rewrite everything on every page, it would be a lot of work. So this takes some of the work out of that. And we're going to talk about those templates here in a minute. Also, just a little side note. I know that when I was organizing my portfolio behind these dividers, I struggled a little bit with like how to organize them. Do I start with like everything from math, from the beginning of the year together, and then everything from the middle of the year together, and then everything from the end of the year together? But I actually found the more that I do this, it's actually easier for you to see progress if you do all of the same skill. I hope I'm making sense. So like this picture right here of this is me. That is where they draw self-portrait, and down below I can write my name, they write their name. I do this 3 times a year generally, and so I'm going to put all 3 of those together in order so that it's really easy just to go, wow, okay, right here, look at what has happened with the complexity of their drawings. Look at what has happened with their name, writing their name. I like to put those all together so that it's easier for parents and anyone else looking at it to see that progression right off the bat. There's no flipping through to try to find the other page that looks just like that to see what kind of progressions were made. So that was just a little side note there. But I mean, it does sound simple enough, right? You've got these core pieces that you're going to put in this portfolio, and we're going to fill it up. We're going to fill it up. So now I want to go ahead and move on to the 3 types of portfolio documents. I came up with these 3 types because this is what I just kept coming back to. I just kept coming back to the fact that I needed an observation page for some of these things because maybe they weren't things that I could take pictures of, maybe they weren't things that I could make into a work sample. Observations is definitely something I can take a picture of, and we'll talk about it more here in a minute. And then work samples. Obviously, I want as many work samples as I can because those are created by the student. That's some pure gold right there. They're creating it. It is them. And then the recording sheets, sometimes you just have to check mark some things like colors or shapes, and you just have to check mark what they do and do not know because it's a lot of rote learning. So these 3 pieces kind of just stood out and made their presence when I was creating this, and these 3 just they cover all of the bases as far as the skills go. So we're going to take them one by one, and I'm really going to give you kind of a little bird's eye view and a little example of how I use these within the portfolio. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with observations. And this right here is an example of an observation document. An observation document has a place to record any observations made in relation to that skill. So all those lines down there are a place to record. Some of my observation templates, if they lend themselves to it, have a place for the picture as well. And that's what that rectangle there is. That empty rectangle is a place for you to take the photo and add it in there. So for this example, it's writing, correct pencil grip, grasp when using writing tools. So that's definitely something I can take a picture of. I can take a picture of that child writing. I can do this as many times as I want, and I can add this page in as many times as I want. I put their name at the top, I add the date. I write down what I'm seeing. Am I seeing them use the right hand or the left hand? What kind of grasp are they using? Did they switch hands while you were observing them? What kind of things are happening? Those are the things in the written part that we can't necessarily see in the photograph itself. Now, there are observation templates that I don't have a photograph for because it just doesn't lend itself well to observation, to a picture. It doesn't lend itself well for me to take a picture of it. One is some of our approaches to learning, takes initiative. Well, that one's a really hard one to put into a photograph, but I've seen it. I know when they do it and I can describe it. And so that's when it becomes just purely notes from me of when I've seen that happen and the date. Also, I want to know, sometimes I'll have more than one picture for skill, and I just like to flip it over and add them to the back. That's just me not wanting to, copy another page, and just a little bit easier. And there's just more evidence of it on the back. And this happens a lot with sorting because for whatever reason, sorting and patterning, I just like click, 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 click. It's just so exciting for them to see themselves do that. And so I have lots of pictures of that. So I always add them to the back as well. So that is an observation template. So it can have a photograph or not have a photograph, but it always has a place for you to make notes about what you're seeing with that child. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to move on to work samples. Okay. Now, a work sample are child-created documents, skills that they're going to show on paper that we can actually include inside the portfolio. Cutting, obviously gluing, writing their name, drawings of any sort, writings of any sort, actually patterning with shapes or color we can do, sorting we can do, just by using little foamies or something, colored foamies, we can sort all those. Those are all work samples. And this one right here is just a cutting sample. The skill is, can we control those scissors? And there's a lot to see when we control scissors as well. And I'll sometimes make some notes up under the name and the date, what hand they were holding the scissors with. Were they able to hold them correctly? Thumb up. Were they able to cut on the line by using that helper hand? All those things I write on there so that later we can see how that child has grown. But it immediately becomes a work sample inside of the portfolio. So work sample is probably what you think of when you think of a portfolio. So this one's pretty easy. But the last one we are going to talk about is recording sheets. Okay, a recording sheet, sometimes you just need a place as a teacher to check off a multitude of elements within a skill. So like in this example, spatial locations, there are lots of different ones. There are lots of different colors. We definitely use this for colors, use this for shapes, all those different skills that just have so many things, basically for children to memorize. We are able to check off which ones they know and they don't know. So in this example, it's positional words, spatial locations. I asked the child to place an object, in the spatial location. So I'll say, can you put this little tiny bear inside this cup? And if they can do that, I write the date next to it because that's something that they were able to do. Can you put the bear on the outside of the cup? Can you put the bear between my hand and the cup? Can you put him under the cup? All those different things. I'm going to go through there and date them. And if I want to, I can take a picture of it and add it to the bottom of here, if that's something I'd like to do. But recording sheets are basically just a way for you to check off a whole bunch of little skills inside of a big skill. So again, colors, I like to go through them. We talk about them in a play-based way. As they're playing cars, oh, that's a cool car. What color is that car? And they tell me. And if they know that color, I can just write that down real fast. And so there's ways to do this without sitting there and drilling them. And that is really what I've been trying to do this past year, and trying to tweak my assessments to help make them more play-based, so that our kiddos aren't doing a lot of sit and drill and answer, that they are able to, within play, observe those things, talk to them, learn what they do and do not know. But, sometimes that's not always easy. And sometimes we do just have to come out and say, what color is this? What color is that? So that's where these come in. The recording sheets come in. So those are the 3 types of templates that I use in my portfolio. So let's just go back just a little bit. Here we are. So observations, this is where you are watching, writing notes, and possibly taking photographs. Work samples are where the child is doing the work and you're saving it for their portfolio. So this could be anything from, a painting that they created, to some, like, for example, we had a dinosaur dig in our dramatic play area, and they had a dinosaur dig observation sheet that they were able to draw what they found and write about it. You could easily just take that and put that in their portfolio as well, because that's a pretty cool work sample right there. So there's lots of different things that you can make into work samples. Also, recording sheets, the last one we talked about, where we're basically just checking off, maybe writing some notes. If they're calling yellow orange, then we can write that down so that we can see if we need any progression. We need to see some progression in that skill, maybe work on that skill a little bit more. But the recording sheet is basically for you to check off a multitude of elements within a skill. So those are the 3 types of portfolio documents that I created. And basically what I did was I just went through my skill sheet, went through my recording sheet that I have for each student, went through the page of what do I want each student to know. And next to each one of them, I said, okay, this can be an observation. This can be a work sample. This could be a recording sheet. This could be an observation without a picture, because that probably, doesn't lend itself to a picture. I just went down the sheet and gave them each their own category within these portfolio documents. And then I quickly created the documents using, I have Pages, but you could easily use Word to create them. They're pretty simplified. Well, keep going here, buddy. As you can see, they've just got a border around them. Very easy. This is just a table. They're not anything fancy, but they definitely serve their purpose. And then let's say, here, I'm going to go back just a wee bit. Let's say we did this correct pencil grass back in September, and I wanted to do it again. I'm just going to make another copy of this, put name and put the next date, and add another picture of how their pencil grasp looks now, so that you can see that progression. And you can do that as many times as you feel necessary. Maybe it's only 2 times a year. Maybe if this kiddo really is working so hard on pencil grasp and it's really a goal, that you do it more than that, because you want that kiddo to see, look where you have gone from. And that's another very powerful part of portfolios. I don't know what pre-kindergartner would care about looking at a report card with you, but I do know some pre-kindergartners that care about looking at pictures of themselves and things that they've done and hearing how amazingly they've done this year in their learning. They love that. They eat it up. They can understand it. It's very visual for them. So let's just go on here. What we learned. We basically learned today what portfolios are and are not. We learned about the materials needed for portfolio creation. We learned about using our templates to save time, and we learned about the 3 types of templates: observations, work samples, and recording sheets. Now, if you are very much going, oh my gosh, this is a great idea, but how am I going to do all that? How am I going to get all that done? I totally understand. It took me a very long amount of time to get it all in order. But now that I feel like I've got it in order, I can reuse it and I can make it successful again and again. But if you definitely are going, whoa, I get it. I totally get it. So now we're going to talk about that bonus that I was telling you about at the beginning here. I created this boot camp for the teachers out there that are going, oh, help me. I don't know if I can create all that. I don't know that I want to create all that. Whatever it may be. I created a 7-day preschool assessment boot camp, and you don't have to do it in 7 days. It's just a fun 7-day layout. That's all that part is. But it basically is going to take you through a step-by-step guide to everything we just talked about and a lot more. So if you can see on the clipboard in this image here, that is my pre-kindergarten assessment recording sheet. That is what I use with my kiddos. In the past, I've had, well, and I still do actually, have this assessment pack in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, but this one is quite a bit different because this one has videos to walk you through. There's 7 days of in-depth, step-by-step lessons. You can, do it at your own pace. There's lifetime access, and you get all the updates with it. But this version of the pre-kindergarten assessment and portfolio packet that's included in here is a new editable version. So that means I'm going to show you how to edit it yourself. And I get lots of requests for that. And unfortunately, it's hard for me to do, a lot of those for a lot of people. This way, I thought maybe I could teach you how easy it is to do it yourself once it's already set up for you. Also in here, you get a note-taking workbook. And let me go to the next slide here. And it will kind of help you just bring all of what you're learning in the boot camp together in a workbook for you. There's also early learning goals, and those are on the slides right here. I created these because our state standards are very, very broad, and I really needed to narrow in on what I wanted to assess on and what I wanted to put out there for kiddos, what I wanted to put in my lesson plans, what skills I wanted to focus on. So those are included as well, and that's what these are based around. But there's also some information in the boot camp about how, if you have your own standards that you have to go by, how you can line these up and make these work. And then you can go and edit it if you need to. There are also observation pages, and these actually, not the portfolio templates that we just talked about. These are just actual pages of, I can grab my clipboard real quick and I can write down what I'm seeing because I'll forget about it later. Those type of observation pages. Then there's also all the portfolio templates, like the ones we just talked about, the observations, the work samples, and the recording sheets. All of them are in there. And there's also some good organizational tips on how you can keep it organized of who's done what assessment and what needs to go in what portfolio, because it can be a big undertaking if you don't have yourself prepared. And there's also information in there on how to use the data collected. And there's lots of freebies in there that you will not find anywhere else that you can use, like a goal setting resource in there, setting goals with preschoolers, one goal at a time through a picture card. There's also some cheat sheets in there, some checklists in there. There's the Preschool Teachers Quick Data Collector, which will tell you which skills during home group that maybe you need to focus on the most. And then there's also some resources and tips for sharing information with your parents, how you're going to handle the process of sharing these portfolios with parents. Maybe you're not ready for them to take them home yet. So what might that look like?